Hello and welcome to Geek First Sidequest, your weekly stop for video game news, reviews, and more here on the Geek First Podcast Network. I'm your host, the hot spirit Dylan Muss, and I have with me the pick dude, Kirklin Patzer, to talk about today's Nintendo Direct. So how are you doing today, Kirklin? It sounds like you got off a little bit early, so you coming home, got to walk with the dog, so it seems like you're doing pretty damn good.
I am. I was, as I was telling you before the cast, I was able to tune into this Nintendo Direct live for the first time in my life, and it was good time. So I'm very much excited to break it down with you. And yeah, it's a sunny day. It's just good vibes all around.
Love it. Yeah, that's pretty much all we're talking about today is Nintendo Direct, and then one other thing, the Nintendo Voucher thing, which is kind of related to what we're talking about today. So yeah, just a couple quick plugs. This week's Sidequest was a bit mangled, where the regular Monday episode didn't end up recording, but instead I released a Marvel Snap focused episode. So a little short 20-30 minute long thing though for the Marvel Snap fans. Check that out. And then obviously today we're recording this on the unusual day for Sidequest to cover the Nintendo Direct as quick as possible. And then next week's episode I'll be back with what was supposed to be this week's, which we're talking about the Marvel's Midnight Suns, Deadpool DLC, some Wolverine rumors, probably some other stuff as well. That episode though will probably be one day late. So rather than dropping Tuesday morning, it'll be up Wednesday morning or Tuesday night if you are a Geek First patron to get, of course, those episodes early and ad-free and all that stuff. And other than that, yeah, we've been covering Last of Us on the weekly basis on the main feed. Of course, that's also early this week. All sorts of schedule stuff is weird this week. So we're going to be covering that on Friday night. So I guess you can either tune in live Friday night or on the feeds. It'll be up there Saturday morning probably. And then we're covering all sorts of other stuff. Season 4, a bunch of trailers at the Super Bowl. We're doing our movie drafts. That'll be a lot of fun. And I think that's pretty much it for the show. Is anything else from you, Kirkland, before we get into this?
I don't think so. I think you hit it all.
Okay, well, I'll say this quickly that, a few weeks ago, we're doing one of the movie drafts tonight, but we did a video game draft recently. And we actually have 2 games now released for that draft. So Travis is currently in first place. He rolled in with Dead Space, which I think is sitting at an 88 or something like that. So pretty damn good. And you're just below him, much higher than I was expecting. So I got to hand it to you. I mean, you are the king from last year. But Hogwarts Legacy, its reviews are out now. And I think it's sitting at an 86 when I checked. So that number might change a little bit. But you're just behind by 2 points. But that's pretty good. That is honestly a lot more than I was expecting for that game to get. So how does that feel as your first game's out now?
Oh, obviously, it's a pleasant news. I guess I would say because the first game that comes out, I feel like it really sets the tone for the year, especially like a big title like that. So if that would have just maybe hit mediocre reviews or, God forbid, just lower than that even, I feel like I would have just been pretty demoralized going forward. Now, anything can change with one big game, I don't know, flop or just big surprise on the scoreboard. But I'm happy with that. And congratulations to Travis as well. He's in first place. Even though it might be short-lived, we'll see what happens as the year progresses.
Mm-hmm. And I guess I should probably also mention that Hogwarts Legacy, of course, is out now. Next week's Sidequest is not going to be talking about Hogwarts Legacy, but the week after, we're going to have the full crew. All 4 of us are going to be on there talking about it. So we'll have a lot of time with it. We'll probably talk pretty deep in spoilers and stuff. So you'll have to wait a bit longer, but you'll get a much more in-depth episode because of it. So stay tuned in the feeds for that. It is gaming season now. Things are releasing every week, every other week. So we're going to have a lot of great content here on Sidequest. But yeah, let's get right into it and talk about some Nintendo for today. Kirkland, you're kind of the Nintendo guy now. It's kind of me and you talking about a lot of these directs, I feel like. So it's fun to have you
it used
here.
to be you and Taylor. Does that sound right?
It's just kind of weird, because even Taylor was with me for a State of Play in June. I remember last year. It's like, why is Taylor doing that? We just kind of jumble things up, but it just kind of so happened that you were going to join me next week. Things change, and now you're here for this direct. So it kind of works out nicely because I know a couple of these games you are particularly interested in. But before we talk about the direct, I wanted to shout this out, which was that Nintendo recently announced that they're bringing back the voucher system. I'd never heard of this voucher system before, so it has existed in the past, but I guess I was pretty checked out of Nintendo for a few years. I was just playing tons of Smash, and I did not pay attention to anything else they were releasing, but they had this voucher system before, where essentially you can buy this voucher, and it will give you essentially a discounted price on 2 games. So I'm going to be talking Canadian prices here, so convert this to your local currency. But for us, Kirkland, the way it works is essentially $132. You buy this voucher, and then you'll get 2 $80 games for that price. So,
Oh damn.
yeah, what is the math on that? You're saving about $30, $25 to $30. And the cool thing about this is like it is brand new games. So even from today, Tears of the Kingdom is one of the games you can do that for. Pikmin 4, Advance Wars, but like Smash Ultimate's in there, Xenoblade 3, Splatoon 3, Fire Emblem Engage, Breath of the Wild, Pokemon Violet Scarlet. Like pretty much every game you can possibly imagine is included in that. So obviously, if you're someone who doesn't buy games at launch, usually Nintendo games, they don't do big sales, but eventually their games do go on like 15% off. Even Breath of the Wild, I think, has been at 50% off. So you could get bigger savings, but if you're buying some of these games at release, no matter what anyway, you just like save a little chunk of change there. So I think it's a pretty cool system. The only caveat here is you need to be subscribed to Switch Online, which, to be fair, that is also very cheap, and I don't even notice like the dent when it charges me every year because it's such a small amount. So obviously but that is like you could factor that into the price of that as well. So any thoughts on this? I mean, Nintendo notoriously does not put their games on sale, so this is a little something. I don't think it's enough to praise them and say they're the best company ever, but it's something, and I do buy a lot of games at release, so this is just, I'll save a little bit of money in that way.
Yeah, totally. A little bit is better than nothing, I guess we could say. But that's fantastic, especially if you are already planning on getting at least 2 games at launch. Like you're already getting maybe not your full money's worth for a video game, but definitely like that savings. That's fantastic. And I feel like for Nintendo to do this, it's I maybe can't shit on them so much anymore for just being this company that never puts anything on sale. When they do, it's like so not noticeable. So I mean, hopefully this is just the start for more stuff to come. Like if I don't know if it just limits it to only being at 2 games, or if down the line like they do something more for if you're getting, I don't know, 3 or 4 games or anything like that. But still, it is cool to hear for sure. Savings are always good.
Yeah. Well, and this kind of be relevant too. We'll talk about this a bit later on, but obviously as of recently, Xbox and Sony have increased the price of some of their first party games by essentially $10. And one of the games that they're now releasing, Nintendo's releasing this year, is doing that as well. But I think this would essentially cancel that out if I'm understanding it correctly, because you're still paying that same amount and you're just getting you get even more savings, I guess, if you use the voucher system. So I guess in some ways they're even further incentivizing you to get Switch Online if you don't have it yet. Plus they, as we'll talk about in the Direct, they're adding other features to Switch Online to make that an even better deal. So if you aren't subscribed to it, like you should be at this point. Kirkland, are you a subscriber? I know you're not really using the online features, but are you there for the other stuff that it gives you?
Shay is the one that has her account on the online back in the Animal Crossing days. She was
Yes.
always on there playing on her friends' islands and all that stuff. So we have online subscribed. Like it's just like our shared credit card or whatever comes out every year. But if I want to play online,
between the two of you, like it's like what, like $15 or something for a year.
No,
It's like,
exactly. It's so negligible, and I'm not always playing online, but it is nice to just have access to it if I need to or whatnot. I haven't like dabbled in any of the old school expansion like games or anything like that with the NES games or anything like that yet. But I mean, if I have it, might as well hop on there.
Yeah, and I mean, for me too, like this is definitely what they want out of you, but it's like there's been games where I'm on the fence for this year, like Octopath Traveler 2, the Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe. I'm like, I don't know if I can justify that full price. But with this, it's like, okay, Nintendo, you probably got me. And so it's like, I'm not really saving money because I probably was not going to buy those at launch, and now I probably will. So I don't know. They kind of get you in that way too. But I think if you're someone who picks up like maybe 2 Nintendo games in a year, the big releases, a Mario, a Zelda, that kind of thing, then like cool, this is only to benefit you. So just a pretty cool thing all around. But with that, let's get into the Direct. So obviously your first time watching a Direct live. What were your overall thoughts of this thing? It was good 45 minutes worth of content here. So what are your just overall impressions?
I thought it was like I thought it was really good. I thought just starting off right off the hop with Pikmin and then ending with Zelda, like that's two big titles
Great
that
bookends.
yeah, like even like I'm not the biggest Nintendo fan, but like that having that send off I think was very very hype. Like I haven't even played all of Breath of the Wild or anything like that. I dabbled a little bit, but like I was just so hyped watching that trailer. It was like man, like what a great way to end off the showcase. I thought overall like they didn't spend too much time on like games that I found to just be a little bit more of a lull. I mean, I don't know. I just wasn't too interested in them, but they were spaced out like well enough that I felt engaged throughout the entire direct. Maybe I could say so. Yeah, and just the gameplay that they showed off. There was a couple titles where all it was maybe like an extended sequence of just like the title and then like some
They always do like a little montage sequence.
yeah, I think it's Advance Wars, that game that you talked to me about with the tactics one. Like there was no gameplay or anything for it, but it was just like a little.
We'll
clip.
talk about that. I have a theory of why that was, but
yeah, it was just a little bit strange. So like, but again, that's like kind of nitpicking it. Like I'm just trying to search for things that I didn't like for it. But all in all, yeah, I thought it was a great time. Was it 40 minutes? We were talking about that yesterday.
It was. Yeah.
Okay. It seemed quicker than that,
maybe?
but I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
All in all, though, it was good.
Good. Yeah. I think for me it was a weird one where it did have that strong start. Pikmin was good to show that off. They finally have the release date and all that stuff. But then, man, I was like a bit worried. We're like 20, even 30 minutes into this thing. I'm like, okay, there's a couple things in here, but overall, this is like a real dud, and I'm expecting it to end with Zelda, so I know that's coming. But then the last 10 minutes, just hit after hit was like speaking to me, and I got some get hype moments and all that. So overall, it was pretty good. I've always said this in recent times. Now that I know Smash is not going to appear in these things, the inherent like hype level possibility is just lower than it used to be. Where no matter how the quality of Nintendo Direct, if it's showing me who the next Smash character is, even if it's someone I don't care about, I'm like instantly way more hyped, and they don't have that anymore. But there's some other stuff in here that did get me going. So yeah, let's get right into it. And just disclaimer, there are a few things here that if I don't think me or you are going to have anything, there's no conversation to generate, I'm just going to skip past it. So at the end, if there was anything I did skip that you wanted to talk about, we can back.
I got a list of ones that
Sounds good.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're the pick dude. Let's start off with Pikmin, where this all began. So Pikmin 4 is officially coming out July 21st. Nice summer spot, which I think it fits nicely for the kind of summer vibes that this game has. You've already said that you're, I think, picking up this game day one. So what did this new trailer do for you in terms of that excitement level?
I think it was just fabulous to just see Pikmin gameplay again. Like I feel like although there's maybe a new mechanic with like the dog companion or anything or something like that, or like the new like the night creatures having these like red eyes, like that was a nice little twist. But like overall it was similar gameplay that I remember from Pikmin, but like I love that aspect of Pikmin, and I think the biggest hype factor for me with this game is Pikmin is a game that I didn't actually own myself. I borrowed from a friend, got a little taste for it, and then I rented it from Blockbuster for like 7 days or something, and like never got to beat it, but like I never owned it, and I just thought like what the game was so unique. I love being just like a little shrunken down individual with all your little Pikmin and like just collecting them. That whole idea was just so fascinating to me, and it's been like it was one of those things where like I just missed the wagon. It was like, okay, I'm never gonna be able to play Pikmin again. I feel like I won't go out to a pawn shop to try and find like the old school version for it. So like
it's expensive too. I can tell you that as someone who does go to used game stores a lot. Pikmin is not cheap.
Yeah, I mean, rightfully so. It's so fantastic. So what this was showing, I'm glad it wasn't like anything that they've reinvented the wheel. Like the mechanics are completely different than what the original one is. Like I think it still has that heart that was in that first one.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I mean, it's not like blowing me away with like the graphics or anything, but I feel like I'm getting what more than what I was expecting, because like I said, I was just expecting a little bit of a deviation in the generic Pikmin style, and I mean there is new additional content to it for sure, but man, I'm so happy with what I saw. And I mean, like I said before, like just to start the direct for this, I was like, oh my god, okay, I'm so pumped for now, like what's gonna be coming next. So yeah, it was good times from the hop.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was a good showing for this. I think the game looks a bit old. Like it does legitimately look still like a GameCube title in terms of the visual fidelity of it. But I also love the art style of the GameCube era games. So it kind of works for what this thing is, and that's where the series started, of course. So I don't think that's a huge knock against it. to me, and maybe this isn't new at all, but it seemed new to me, was the ice Pikmin. I don't remember that ever being a thing, even especially in Smash, where you're picking the different types. Like ice,
Right.
ice is not a version, so it's pretty classy. You can freeze bigger enemies with it in combat, or you can freeze sources of water, like a puddle, or who knows, maybe a river or something down the road, and then you can kind of get across that. So that seems like a fun like little addition you can do gameplay wise that magnify that with the other Pikmin types, and now you have like a bunch of new permutations of things that can happen. So that seems fun. The dog creature was like such a weird addition. It just seems like so against what these games are, where you're controlling like the little Pikmin characters, but now you have like this character who kind of rivals some of the enemy sizes. So kind of a weird choice, and it seems like you can use it to crush through certain things on like a big of vases in your way, and you can use that character to crush through it. And of course, it's like some weird / cute looking dog creature. So just a fun, like kind of quirky addition that I would kind of expect for this series. And you mentioned like when it goes to nighttime and like the eyes turn red and they're like corrupted versions. I'm like, this is such a classic Nintendo thing. This is just like Breath of the Wild all over again. So I just found that particularly silly that they decided to do that kind of trope again that I feel like so many Nintendo games have done over the years. Does not seem like a Pikmin thing that they would want to do, but they're doing it. And yeah, once again, so July 21st, the release date there, which I don't think anything else is currently announced for July, at least any big thing. So that's pretty cool. It seems like they got a nice runway there. And other things, of course, will eventually come out. But it seems they always want something in that July slot. Like they had Ultimate Alliance, Three Houses and stuff. So they always want something in that particular era. I think Live last year. So it seems like this is the one for this year. Moving along to Xenoblade Chronicles 3. We don't need to talk about this too much because we haven't played this game, but the new DLC wave is coming out on February 15th. The thing that stood out to me here was they said they're adding like a roguelike mode to this thing where you essentially taking the mechanics and the combat and the characters of this game and some new stuff with the DLC and then like adding just a roguelike mode on top of it. So I'm really curious how that works in just the framework of what is like an open world action RPG. Don't really know how that fits. But like that kind of sold me in a way. Like I did really want to pick up this game last year, and I feel like once all the DLC is out, it could be a really worthwhile pickup, and you just have like hundreds of hours of content, especially with a roguelike mode in there. And then they also showed off like in a future wave, it seems like Shulk is coming back, who of course is like the Smash Bros rep for Xenoblade, and maybe some other characters that I couldn't recognize, but seemed like they're probably legacy characters for the series. So seems like they got some good stuff cooking over there. Anything you want to add on that, or should we keep going?
It's a series that I've always been fascinated by because of Smash, Shulk, and just wondering what that universe is, and like the map for Xenoblade Chronicles in Smash has just blown me away. But I feel like the time sink is a little bit too scary for me to jump into. So maybe one day. Definitely.
Okay, skipping along a couple titles all the way up to Tron Identity. So we saw this game, I think it was back in October at the Disney Showcase, whatever that thing was branded as. And we kind of just got one screenshot, if I remember correctly, and maybe like a CG trailer. But we actually got to see some gameplay here, which isn't a ton, right? Because this is like a visual novel type of game. But I was surprised with the art style because I thought it would be more 2D and maybe even like pixel art aesthetic. But instead, it does kind of have these 3D environments. But it is still visual novelty where it's kind of just moving. Like it's not like there's actively the motorcycles or whatever those are called. I'm sure they have a fun name in Tron. Instead of them driving around, it's just like a 3D environment, kind of Marvel Snap-ish in that way. So it kind of has an interesting aesthetic, but it's definitely a visual novel. Do you care about this at all? Are you a Tron guy? And I don't think you're much of a visual novel guy, but how about this connection between those two?
Not so much. I feel like Tron was something I was interested when I was younger, and then just it passed. And when I watched this trailer, it was like, okay, visual novel. There is a select few of like I think just properties that could get me in if I'm already like really interested in the source material. But I think I'll pass on that one.
All right, sounds good. I think for me too, I'm not really a Tron person. This studio, though, I've played one of their games. Thomas Was Alone, and it's pretty cool. And I'll soon be playing John Wick Hex, which the studio also made. So it's cool that they're doing some IP stuff now. And maybe I play Hex and I love that game and I'm super hyped and I want to check out this just because of the studio, Bithell Games. But we'll see about that. Next up was Ghost Trick Phantom Detective, which I believe was a DS game. And this is a sort of a remaster, not a remake, but more of a remaster of that coming out in the summer. This is pretty exciting for me, actually, because this is a game that I've heard a lot about. And again, it's one of those things that I have on my list, and when I'm at a used game store, I'll look for it. And if I can find it, it's not cheap, once again. So it's cool that it'll come to the Switch, because that'll probably drive the prices down on it. Eventually go on sale, too, and stuff. So I don't know if it's a day one, but I've just heard a lot of great stuff about this. It's a mixture of kind of an Ace Attorney sort of game, mixed with some other interesting gameplay elements. So I don't necessarily love the look of the remaster, to be honest, but I still think, is just from what I've heard, really interesting, unique game. So I'll definitely consider checking this one out.
Yeah,
Anything you want to add on that?
That's one I added to my list. I
Cool.
just thought what it was so unique and interesting, and yeah, I agree. I probably wouldn't get it right away, but it's definitely on my list. And the price drops or something, or if I'm just looking for a game to pick up, I definitely could see myself getting really engulfed in it. It was just the system was really interesting, as well as like the murder mystery aspect.
Mm-hmm. They showed off this game called Deca Police, which I think this is the first time we've seen it. It's coming out this year at some point. Where essentially it seems like you are, once again, a kind of detective. This is the detective sequence of the showcase. And you're going into a simulated version of the world that you live in to solve crimes, I guess, to like see hypothetically what was going to happen. I don't know if it's like you're predicting what's a crime someone would do and then you're arresting them before they could do
Minority
it.
Report.
Yeah, Minority Report style. Or if it's like, okay, this crime has occurred and you're being sent into a simulation to go back and find out what happened, maybe catch the person in progress or something like that. It was a very, very Japanese game. Like, it doesn't even have English voice acting, and even just the style of it, very, very Japanese. So I don't know if this is a title for me, but I thought it was a pretty interesting one. And I'm curious to hear people's impressions when they have picked it up, because it seems very stylized and pretty cool overall.
Yeah, that was another one I added to my list. Not so much the one I wanted to pick up, but just I thought it's another one that I think looks like a serious time sink. But just like, yeah, the way that you're being detective, as well as the characters that you come across, as well as just like the anime vibes, as you mentioned. Like, it was definitely interesting to me, but unfortunately I think it's too much of a barrier to entry for me, of just how much time I'll have to spend in it. But really, really cool looking game. I like the aesthetic for sure. And yeah, it looked really cool.
Good stuff. We'll skip along here up to Splatoon 3 is getting an expansion pass, which I think might be included in Nintendo Switch Online. Although I don't think they said that in this trailer, but I swear when you go on the app on Switch, it says that in there. So, you have to fact check me on that. But essentially, there's two waves here. The first one, to me, I'm not really a Splatoon guy, but it actually seemed pretty disappointing, and so I'm curious to hear what the Splatoon fans think of this. But it's like you can go to the hub world from the first game, so it's kind of cool in a way, but you'd think that people would want like actual gameplay stuff, like new maps or new weapons or new game modes or something. You'd think that's what people would want, but instead you can just go to a different hub world that seemingly doesn't have anything new. They're just like, you can go to this hub world and it has all of the same features as the hub world in this game. So did you like?
It was very weird.
The same way.
It was very weird, and like, oh yeah, we got singers they'll just sing for you while you're here, and it's just like, this is so bizarre. And yeah, I've never played a Splatoon game, but it just seemed very lackluster. Like, if I was a Splatoon guy, I feel like that would have been disappointing. So yeah, I am curious what the actual fans think of that one.
And the one I played was the first one where Inkopolis was the hub, and I don't care. Like, this is not going to bring me back. I'm curious who this is really for. And maybe part of that wave is new maps and new weapons and stuff, and they just didn't mention that today. But it would seem weird if I don't know why you wouldn't show that off to get some people hyped. But then the second wave is more, because Splatoon, like, it seems like a very kiddie game, very colorful, playful, and stuff like that. And they do these different events where it's like fucking donuts versus croissants, like, what team are you on? And like, it's just very silly and playful. But then there is a side to Splatoon where it is weird, and like, it is like a post-apocalyptic world, and it gets dark at times. And so this second wave of DLC is, to me, what I thought looked particularly interesting, where it's this very trippy world where it was like kind of things were cutting in and out. it's a world without any color at all, which of course is kind of the opposite of Splatoon. So I don't know if it's like in this DLC you're kind of bringing color back to this place, but it seemed very trippy, almost like a Black Mirror thing. And it's called Side Order. So this is coming. They didn't say later this year. They just said later. So who knows when that's coming out. But that seems more interesting. I'm curious to hear what people think about that one.
I didn't love the presentation of it, just like how disorienting it was. I had to minimize my screen. It was like, oh my god, this is too much. But I thought it was a different game altogether. Like it just seems so different than Inkopolis with the singers just popping off. And then when I realized it was still Splatoon, it was like, because like I said, I've never played it, so I didn't really realize that it was like a post-apocalyptic. Easy for me to say, post-apocalyptic world or anything like that. So just very bizarre.
Yeah, very strange. Moving on. So Fire Emblem Engage. Once again, go back, check out our review that we did on that game. They announced that the next wave of DLC is out today. Isn't that crazy? The game's been out for 10 days and there's 2 DLC packs out already. It's a bit sus crazy. If you ask me, Kirkland. I talked about this on the review that I was pretty salty that they had day one DLC for this thing, and the fact that they have another pack coming out like a week later is just grimy, just very grimy. But putting aside that bias that I have for it, let's talk about what's actually in here. They mentioned that there are some new emblem rings coming to the game. Hector from Fire Emblem the Blazing Blade, Soren from Path of Radiance, Camilla from Fates, Chrom and Robin from Awakening. I think with that also that closes off that all the characters that have appeared in Smash now are now emblem rings in this game. They've done it all, so that's pretty cool. And then Veronica, who I think is from Heroes, because I didn't recognize the character, so I'm guessing that's where she's from. So you get some new emblem rings. There's going to be some new missions, and then they announced kind of this. So that's the stuff that's out today. And then they announced in the next wave is going to be the Fell Xenologue, I think is what this thing is called. Very strange name. And this is like a new story expansion, similar to the Ashen Wolves DLC that Three Houses had, is the vibe I got here with it. This is one's going to have new characters, a new side story, and probably some new emblem rings and all that stuff as well. But yeah, what did you think of this as a Fire Emblem guy? Did any of this want to sell you to pick up Engage, especially now that you can drop a voucher on it and get the game a little bit cheaper?
I like the characters that they showcased. I haven't played like more than 3 Fire Emblem titles, so like the character Veronica, I was gonna ask you about that. So it is interesting that you don't even know who she was. What was Heroes? Was that the Hyrule Warriors type of game?
No, that was the mobile game. So it's kind of like it's kind of like a gacha game, and it has pretty much every character from Fire Emblem like in there, and you can do little battles and stuff. But then there is original characters, and I think Veronica might be like one of the story-based characters in that game that whatever for the new story that they created for it. But
but like watching the trailer, like they obviously had gameplay in there as well. It's just that game looks so great, but I gotta hold myself off. I gotta beat the the current Fire Emblem games that I'm on right now. But it was so funny though, because I was definitely thinking of you when the trailer was going on, because I was just like, man, look at all this new content that's coming out already. It was just, I was thinking back to our
haven't
review.
even had time to get halfway through the game, and now you're throwing all this stuff at me. It just makes me wonder how they plan to balance the game, right? Like how is the main game balanced if they're factoring in that immediately people are going to have access to all these emblem rings? Because that's a big part of the game, is that you're very limited on which emblem rings you have and how many characters are going to have them, and those are very powerful effects. So I do, like, the more I've played the game, I'm still enjoying it, but I do have issues with the difficulty of it. And one of the problems too is, like, I bumped the difficulty down to normal because it was just kicking my ass at certain points, and you can't bump the difficulty back up, which is like, okay, if I had all these extra emblem rings, I could probably pretty easily make my way through that difficulty again. But so I just wonder from a design perspective, like how do you balance a game when you have just such a inconsistent amount of who's going to have what content for it, even on day one. It's just a weird issue that they've never really had to deal with in Fire Emblem before. It's really just like Three Houses, I think, had day one stuff, but it was like you get made costumes for your characters, like some weird fan service stuff. It wasn't really like, maybe you got like an extra iron sword or something weird, but nothing that was as big as this in terms of gameplay balance. So Fire Emblem rant over. Some of that DLC's out today. Other stuff's coming out later. I'm gonna wait and see what the full scope of the thing is and see how I feel about the game once I've finished it, and if I want to go back for another playthrough, in which case I'd want some of the extra content in there. These characters are great. It's cool to see these characters, especially Soren from Path of Radiance was a favorite in that game. Hector, that's really cool to have. don't care too much about the other ones in there. Not my favorites necessarily. Crom, Robin, Love Awakening, so it's fun to have them in there. But
I remember having Camilla on Fates. She was a heavy hitter of mine, so yeah.
Yeah,
she was like not the Pegasus. It was like
she's a Wyvern rider, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's like fan service city, right? She's just classic animated character with huge tits, so they got to throw her in there. And I should have mentioned this too. That I saw that some people were like data mining Engaged. So I think this maybe took a window of the sales a bit for me, as I saw that these characters were coming.
Oh, okay.
So that leak, I guess, data mine ended up being true. And I don't think there was any more in that. Maybe there's some other info, but I don't think there's other characters in that data mine, so I don't know who else is coming later on. But I guess I'd seen some of these characters coming, so it wasn't as much of a surprise for me. Moving on, so I think this was a new announcement. Harmony, The Fall of Reverie is coming out in June. This is from Don't Nod, so the studio that made the original Life is Strange 2. They said the soundtrack is by Lena Raine, who did Celeste, and the soundtrack so far in the trailer was like, oh yeah, this is my jam. But yeah, just once again, kind of a visual novel style game, which you would kind of expect based off the Life is Strange developers. Very story focused, probably pretty emotional kind of game. Didn't really do it for me other than the music. I definitely will check out that soundtrack when it drops on Spotify. I don't know if I'll be checking out the game itself. But did this thing do anything for you? Any intrigue here?
Definitely I like the music of it, but it just, one of those games I'll probably just have to pass on.
Yeah, okay. With that, let's pass over into our first ad break, and we'll be back to break down the rest of this Nintendo Direct. Okay, we are back. Octopath Traveler 2. They showed off a thing. The game's coming out. We already knew this, February 24th. But they said today the demo's up now. You can check that out. And then as it did with the first game, as it did with Triangle Strategy, your progress carries over to the main game. So that's pretty cool. I think I'll be doing that. I'm not 100%, as I mentioned earlier, sold on whether or not I'm getting this game. So I think this demo will be a good chance for me to jump in, play for a couple hours, see if I really want to invest those more hours. So that's cool. They had a remaster for We Love Katamari. So once again, you can check that out if you're a fan of those games.
That game, it was so bizarre to me to see. I don't understand, because like there's the little character on the side of the screen, and like they're running as the ball is moving. Like, is it implying that the character's inside the ball, or how does that work?
Well, they're pushing it around, and I think the version on the side is supposed to be just like their facial reaction and stuff. Okay. Is I think what's going on. Which other games like Neon White did that. It's kind of a weird thing. I guess when a game is like from behind, you can't see their face, and they want to show their reactions. It is a bit weird. I mean, that game is all about being just incredibly strange and off the wall. So I don't really know what's new with this version, but for those fans, it seems like you're pretty consistently getting new stuff, whether it's remakes, remasters, or new games. So that's cool.
Yeah.
This is a big one for me. Sea of Stars is one of the hot indie games on the scene right now, and we haven't known what the release date was. They had 2023 as their window, but now we have August 29th, so you got to wait quite a bit here still. And then with this, they had a free demo, which I think this was out today, or maybe they just said a free demo is coming. I forget exactly what it was.
It said later today, I believe.
Cool.
For the demo.
Yeah. They usually, if they're ever going to announce a demo, it's usually is like a out today kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But yeah, this is just like a Chrono Trigger looking sort of game, retro throwback action RPG from the developers of The Messenger from a few years ago. This game looks fucking amazing. You know, you got a great composer in there too. And just the visuals alone, like this game looks like it's got a ton to it. I cannot wait for this thing. The Messenger was really cool, and it's a really cool riff on the genre it was playing to. And so I feel like this being kind of an homage to that era of JRPG, but being modernized and taking all this time that they have. Their last game out 2018, so they've been working on this thing for a long time. I think this thing is going to be huge and one of the best games of the year. That's what I'm predicting, and so I'll definitely check out this demo. I'm not really in a rush since the game comes out in August, but yeah, what do you think about this? I don't know if you've really had this one on your radar to this point.
Not so much. I feel like I have so many turn-based JRPGs on my list of games to play, Chrono Trigger being one of them. But yeah, I was blown away by the visuals and the music of this game. It just, man, like I think like the level of detail of it was just blowing my mind. Like whether it was the characters running on like a certain platform, and then everything like in the background was just so detailed. It just looked so visually beautiful. And yeah, like it is. it's not like maybe you know more about like the art style specifically. Like, is it just pixel art in general? Like, is that what that style is for this? Because it's like a more updated modern version, but whatever it is, it looks gorgeous.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to feel like pixel art, but it's not
Yeah.
true pixel art, or like there's so many pixels that it's like, is this really pixel art anymore? That kind of thing.
Yeah,
But yeah,
whatever
it's supposed
it
to
is,
it's
looks
supposed to
gorgeous.
elicit that feeling of Chrono Trigger, I think, is the vibe
Yeah.
they're going for. Even like the color palette kind of feels reminiscent of that, right?
I like the sea sequence too, like the way that they're going
Yeah.
on the ship too. It just,
Oh,
as you
God,
mentioned, like
looks
it just
so
it,
good.
it looks like such a amazing adventure to just jump in on. So yeah.
I got to bring up this next one just because it made me laugh, but it's called Omega Strikers. And
Oh,
I feel
yeah.
like that title, I don't know, is like playing on Mario Strikers a bit. This is like an air hockey game, but like your characters have powers, and they kind of look like a bit Overwatchy in terms of the art style, and it's like not
Yeah.
third person, but like even one of them's like a hamster character, like that guy from Overwatch. So yeah, air hockey Overwatch called Omega Strikers, coming out in April. I don't think I'll be picking it up, but it gave me a good laugh. So shout outs to that game for existing.
I had it on my list because I wasn't sure if it was like split screen co-op or online only, but I'm like, man, this could be an amazing Gauntlet game. You know, Gauntlet's
Yeah.
RIP, but like,
Whenever it comes back, we'll be playing Mario Strikers and Omega Strikers back to back on there.
good 24-hour stream game, I think. Because yeah, just air hockey is fantastic, and then you have that like Strikers feel on it, and yeah, it is pretty funny. You got Strikers that came out not too long ago. Now it's Omega Strikers, free to play, so that's nice.
Oh, I didn't actually catch that detail. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll be checking it
Yeah.
out then. I'll definitely
you go.
give this an afternoon. And if hopefully it does have that online, me and you should get in there, do a little 1v1. I'd be down for that.
Okay, yeah. So it says free to play online multiplayer. So maybe not like couch co-op style, but you know,
Okay.
we all got Switches, so there you go. 3v3s.
Yeah, we'll check it out. Next up, this is probably a quick hit, but Atrian Odyssey, the Origins Collection, this is kind of remasters of those three games. And then you can also buy them individually, which that's cool that they offer that option. And sometimes they don't do that for these collections, but you can probably get
Yeah.
cheaper versions if you say already have 1 and 2. You just want to check out the third one. I picked up one of these games on the 3DS actually at one point, and I played it for like an afternoon. I was like, this is not for me. I don't think it's a bad game necessarily. It just was not really what I was looking for. So I don't think I'll be picking this up, but I thought it was worth a quick shout out.
Yeah, I had it on my list as well, just because I wanted to shout out the like the mechanic of them, like actually like drawing, essentially like your path that you're going on. It was just very unique and like a style that I've never seen in a video game before. But yeah, not a game that I'll probably check out, but it's cool that it exists. I
It's a
thought it was
cool
just very unique.
idea, the way you interact with the map and stuff. But I think for me, when I was actually playing it, it just felt a bit too confined. And so I didn't really have that much fun exploring when I should have. But I like the idea of making your own maps. That's something I want more games to try out. But next up, you mentioned this Advance Wars 1+2 reboot camp's coming out April. So essentially, this game was supposed to come out, I believe, last April as well. But then there was the war in Russia and Ukraine, and they delayed it because of that. And then it was just getting kicked down the road. That war is obviously still ongoing. And they're just, I guess now at this point, we're like, well, this war might never end. So we're just going to release this game now, 1 year later. I found it very interesting that this trailer, even though, of course, this game's been done, presumably, for a whole year, didn't have any gameplay in it. I think they're trying to create any sort of disconnect between this is a game about war in which one of the parties is even designed to replicate a Russia-like country. So, which is funny because like even the trailer they had, which was just like a cutscene, still had like these friends. It was made to look a lot more fun and colorful, but they're still like cruising around on a tank and doing
Yeah.
stuff. So it's like obviously, and it's in the title. This is still a game about war, but I think they were not. But it's like the game looks like little, army men and stuff. Like it looks like a kid's toy, like a diorama style. It's very kiddie and colorful and playful. So I don't feel like they need to be worried about that. But I guess that's just what they've had to do for the marketing strategy. But I'm glad that this thing is finally coming out because there was, talk that maybe this thing just gets canceled, and that would be really sad if a game that is done just got canceled. So I'm glad it's coming out. Once again, as I said last year, don't know if I'm picking it up day one. I really do want to get, check out Advance Wars, but just the price is a bit heavy. We'll talk about the original games were on a system that might be now on Nintendo Switch Online. So who knows? If those came there, I don't think I'd really want to pick up the reboot camp when I don't necessarily love the art style. But yeah, any thoughts on this as a fellow Tactics fan over here?
Not so much. I'm glad you filled in the gaps because I was just very surprised on why there was no gameplay. I didn't know all those details. But
Yeah.
yeah.
That's funny. Okay, Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe coming out February 24th. Essentially, the new stuff they showed off today was a demo, again, out today. So I'll be checking that out. And then I think this is new. The Megalore Epilogue is, I guess, a new addition to this. So that's pretty cool. That's something. Colin, the Big Yosh in Discord, we were talking about this just now. He said this is one of his favorite games from back in the day on the Wii. So it's cool. There's some new content here. There's a lot of multiplayer. The more I see about this game, the more I do want to pick it up. The price tag does feel a bit heavy, but once again, like if I'm splitting this with my partner, in terms of the price, and you throw the voucher on there, it's like this feels like an easier purchase now. So I feel like there is a pretty good chance that I pick this up. Obviously, this epilogue doesn't really do much for me, but it's like cool. It's a little something extra to do, and this is like some new, never before played Kirby character. It seems like I think it's like the villain of the game or one of the villains, and now it's like a playable character. He has like his own set of missions, and you can level him up and stuff like that. So seems pretty cool. I guess check out the demo to decide if you want to pick it up. But I know you loved Kirby last year. Is this one you'd see yourself picking up as well?
It was funny a couple of days ago. Shay was telling me about this game, and she's like, "Oh, when's this out? We gotta pick it up." So I'll have to send her the trailer because this is gonna be probably a day one, just because her and I really want to jump on there. The co-op aspect, it seems better than what like the last Kirby game was personally, just because I feel like the fact that you have just maybe multiple Kirby's or like multiple of this epilogue character instead of just like the main character and then that side character. That was like one of the bigger issues that I had.
Even like
with
playing
that
as Meta Knight in like King Dedede and stuff. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You don't get to do that in too many Kirby games.
No, exactly, and this is up to 4 players, so that's amazing. I feel like not a lot of games have that in them, and I just thought it was a really good trailer. The gameplay looks really fun, and I think we're gonna have a fun time playing this. And the little epilogue sequence, that was awesome to see. I feel like I could like usually expect something like that to be paid DLC, so the fact that you just get it like after you beat the story mode, that's awesome, and it looks fun. Another one that you can obviously play co-op. So all in all, I just thought this was a really, really sweet showcase, and can't wait for some more Kirby fun.
Yeah, good stuff. Next up, so this was really when to me the Direct kicked into high gear, and I was getting super hyped. So they showed off what is the new offerings to Nintendo Switch Online, which is something that has been long rumored for like I want to say 2 years at this point. And then they released N64 instead and surprised people. But now it's finally coming. Game Boy games they're adding here. So, obviously you can just go, if you have Nintendo Switch Online, you just go on, you can download these and play them. The opening, or the games that are out here day one are Tetris, Super Mario Land 2, 6 golden coins, which is just a fucking mouthful. Link's Awakening, Gargoyle's Quest, never heard of that. Game & Watch Gallery 3, Alone in the Dark, The New Nightmare, Metroid 2, Wario Land 3, and Kirby's Dream Land. Really cool, too, that you can play this either with the original Game Boy aesthetic, which is like green, right? That's how it looked. Or you can do the Game Boy Pocket color scheme or the Game Boy Color filter. That's really cool. I love that you can switch between the three of them. Hopefully you can do it like on the fly too, even just like in a certain level. Maybe there's a really cool looking area you can switch between them. But I think it's a pretty decent starting roster. This is actually one of the blind spots for me with Nintendo because I jumped in on the Game Boy Advance. I never really played a lot of these original games. So I've not played really any of these other than, of course, Tetris and Link's Awakening. I played the remake on Switch. So I'm really excited to check these out. I was also shocked to see Alone in the Dark, The New Nightmare, because I always assumed that was like a GameCube Wii era new series. I did not realize that started on the handheld. And that looked really cool. Like that little 10-second clip they showed of it. I'm like, this looks like a really cool survival horror kind of detective sort of game. And I can't wait to check out like all these. Like I don't know if I'll play all these games to completion by any means, but just jump in there, check them out for 10-15 minutes each. Like this is awesome. That's a really cool starting roster. So before we go into the rest of the stuff here, do you have any nostalgia for the original Game Boy, or what do you think about this original roster of games that they got here for day one?
I think it's a sweet idea. I don't have a lot of nostalgia for the original Game Boy Color. I might get lynched for saying this, but I feel like I just see these games. I'm like, man, just new video games are so much better than what they had back in the day. I get it. I get the aesthetic style and everything, and just like that nostalgia feeling.
I think some of these games hold. Like I imagine Wario Land 3 is still just like a banging platformer. I've heard
Yeah.
nothing but praise for Wario Land and those games.
So yeah, no, absolutely, and I think some of the games that they are hinting at, like coming down the line, those are a little bit more interesting to me. So it might be something that I jump into later on. But just this initial roster, yeah, it is like those big name titles, like you got Metroid in there, you got Super Mario, Wario Land. So that is awesome. I'm glad that is a thing, because like even when they did like the N64 NES stuff, like that's just, man, it's so fantastic. Nintendo's just had all these properties and they've just been like holding them for some reason. So many people have like so much nostalgia for these old titles. So it's fantastic that they're finally, like making them accessible for the modern gamer or modern Nintendo fan. I was a lot more intrigued in the Game Boy Advance stuff that was shown, because that was a system that I personally never had. I just like got like a little glimpse from like my cousin or something, like playing on his. But yeah, a lot of the titles that were showcased there, whether it's, I mean, like I guess I'm just taking us there right now, but like Fire Emblem,
go for it.
like the Legend of Zelda, Minish Cap, I think it's called.
Yep.
That's the one you told me about a long time ago, and just all the titles that were showcased there and the ones coming down the line, I was super jazzed for. So I could see myself jumping on the Game Boy Advance one before, and I don't know, maybe jump on the original Game Boy Color, especially like you said, bouncing through the aesthetics. I think that'll be pretty cool, but definitely not going to be rushing to jump on these titles.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I think I hear what you're saying, because if you go back and check out a lot of those NES titles, a lot of those games suck. Like it was the first Nintendo console. A lot of these games are horrible, and like some of the first party stuff, like even the original Metroid, like not a very good game. Like there's way better Metroids to do. Like the original Mario games, of course, those hold up. I don't even really like the first one, but like a lot of those games hold up. But when you go back to a lot of that library, it's brutal. You play something for 2 minutes and you're like, I'm never playing this again. But I feel like even though the Game Boy, in terms of tech, is a similar power to what the NES had, I just feel like in terms of just game design, developers had gotten a lot better by that time. And so I feel like a lot of these games are a lot better. So obviously remains to be seen, because I have not played a lot of these original Game Boy titles yet. But some of the other stuff they announced that is coming down the road is Pokemon, the Pokemon trading card game. So I don't actually know what that looks like, because it's not like Pokemon Blue or Red or anything. It's the trading card game. So I'm curious what that is. I'll definitely be checking that out. Zelda Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages, 2 Zelda games I've never played, so I'm very curious to go back and check those out. Kirby Tilt and Tumble, I have no idea what that is. I've never heard of that game before, so I'm very curious to see what that is. I think that was it. That was all they showed for now, so hopefully we see more of that stuff. And then, rolling into... I don't think I mentioned this, but these are also out today. This is up now. You can download these things right now and get them going. And then, so as you mentioned, the Game Boy Advance, which this is where I got goosebumps, because I love the Game Boy Advance. I talked about several Game Boy Advance games last year. I am still buying Game Boy Advance things, was playing Hobbit Game Boy Advance literally like 2 weeks ago. Like I love this console. It's my favorite handheld of all time. So I was getting just nerd chills when they showed this off. I was just so happy. And the original game's there. Minish Cap, which if anyone's not played that Zelda game, it is a really interesting one, because it was not developed by Nintendo. It was developed by Capcom. So it is a weird one, but a really, really cool game. Super Mario Advance 4. And then it had like a subtitle to it, so I don't even know what that is. WarioWare Inc. Love it, because once again, this is one I have on my list, and when I go to use Game Force, I'm looking for it, and it's like fucking $60, $80, stupid stuff like that. So cool, I can just download it now. Kururin, don't know what that is. Mario Kart Super Circuit, Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, so that's another really cool one that I've not played that I'm very excited to check out. So kind of a small roster for what is a console that has tons and tons of games, so hopefully more and more get added. But then, as you mentioned, so some of the games coming down the road, I have some in front of me here. Fire Emblem, The Blazing Blade.
Nice.
F-Zero, what is it called? It's called Maximum Velocity. This is just like essentially not even a remaster, but it's just the original like NES or SNES, I guess SNES F-Zero game. So it's not great, but you can check it out. Sure, why not? And Golden Sun. I was really surprised to see Golden Sun in there. Just because that is a game that has kind of been forgotten over the years. And that's a diehard fan base there for those, like, I think 2 or 3 games that exist. So those are coming down the road. Metroid Fusion as well, which is awesome. That's what a lot of people still consider this day the best Metroid game that's ever come out. Kirby and the Amazing Mirror I've never played. So some really great games coming down the road. And yeah, Kirkland, that is the Fire Emblem game that I have that has the fucking cursed cartridge that I've talked about lately.
Yeah.
And I haven't been able to beat the game because my saves get deleted. So that will not happen on the Switch Online version. So I think I still need some more time for that wound to heal. But someday I will have the chance finally to go back and actually beat that game. And also the pairings there nicely. We were talking about Fire Emblem Engage earlier is adding Hector. That's the game he's from. So that's cool. You can go back and see the game that he is from. And Lynn is in Engage as well. So you can go back and see the roots of that. But I'm so excited for that because there's so many people that either played Awakening or Three Houses as their kind of only entry points in Fire Emblem. And like go back and check out the GBA versions because that's where the series at least started in North America, and it is just some great games there. So I'm very, very excited for that. But you know, one of the things with this that maybe surprised me a bit is I still feel like we are waiting on a ton of N64 games. I think there's like 15 or something like on the catalog. And this makes me a bit worried that they are done adding N64 games. They just added GoldenEye, but that was a bit of a weird case where like also Xbox added their Game Pass version of that. So there was clearly something going on with the rights of GoldenEye, less so than like Nintendo really trying to get a new N64 title on there. So yeah, to my memory, there's still a lot of things missing for the N64 library. So do you think they're just done, they're moving on, or do you think we can still expect some N64 stuff down the road?
I would be very surprised if it is just done. I feel like maybe like if that came out and they knew that they were going to be doing this next wave with the Game Boy and the Game Boy Advance, maybe there was just like, hey, we're going to have like select titles for these systems until they're all out, and then maybe they do like new waves there. At least that's like my optimistic thinking of it, because otherwise it's just like why tease us with this amazing idea and then you just limit us with only like 15 titles. I think that would be a major misstep in their behalf, because like for all these like remastered like system and games coming out, this kind of ties back in with the Pikmin thing, where like for me, I didn't have access to Pikmin, I didn't have Game Boy Advance or anything like that, so I just like missed out on like all those catalogs. So the fact that this is coming back, like I am totally willing on spending, well, I'm already paying for the online, but if I didn't, like I would pay in to like get access to this. I just think it's so fantastic. So yeah, I just think they'd be like handicapping themselves if they just if they just leave it at that and like just never release it again, because like what are they gonna do for like next year? Just forget about it? Like that just seems so bizarre.
I mean, like Super Smash Bros is not on the N64 thing. What the hell? Get that on there. Like I have the cartridge, I can pop it in my N64, but like I want to play the thing with a GameCube controller on my Switch right now. If they never add that, I will be pretty bummed. Like that to me is a huge miss if they can't get that on there. I don't think Donkey Kong 64 is on there. That could be a weird one because it's rare. But you would think that Nintendo owns it, so they can just drop it on there at any point. I don't think that's on there. I could be wrong. But yeah, like I'd have to go back and look at other ones. But yeah, I feel like there's still a lot of stuff missing there. So hopefully they can go back. At least Smash. At the very, very least, please do that. That's my one ask for Nintendo. And yeah, I cannot wait to see what they add more to the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance library. Really hope they add Fire Emblem: The Sacred Stones, because that's still my favorite Fire Emblem to this day, and I really want people to have the chance to play that thing, because once again, that is not cheap, and it's very hard to find, and other than emulators, like you're just not going to play it, so hopefully they add that in there. A little bit disappointing that they actually are also adding Fire Emblem, the one before Blazing Blade, but only on the Japanese version of the eShop, because that game was never technically localized. So obviously that would involve more work from them to localize the game and bring it over. That's Roy's game. I wish they would go through that extra effort, but I know that they're just grabbing and slapping these things. They are not editing and changing anything. Even like, we talk about how they have the Game Boy filters, but that's more of like an overlay, right? It's not like they're going in the code of Wario Land and changing stuff to add that feature in there. So hopefully we get to see a lot more things here, and hopefully it's not the end of N64. They've done a pretty good job of NES and SNES at this point, but there is still like Chrono Trigger is not on the SNES. That would be fantastic if they could get that on there. They finally did Earthbound. It took a long time, but they finally got that on there. So very, very curious to see what else they add there. But man, like the value add now of Switch Online, like you get the Animal Crossing DLC. I think there's some Splatoon DLC on there, and then like NES, SNES, N64, Game Boy Advance. Not to mention you just play online and some other random things that they add in there. The voucher program, like that is for the price, man. Like I'm shocked they haven't increased the price of that thing recently, because That is some damn good value they have on that thing now.
Absolutely.
Plus, they have the family plan where you can get it even cheaper if you have a group of friends to split that on. So, yeah. Okay, that was a mouthful, but that's, like I said, that was probably my most hyped thing of the day. So I'm very excited we got to break that down. Moving on, let's talk about this. Metroid Prime Remastered is also out later today, and the physical version is coming out February 22nd. So, yeah, this is interesting because this has also been a huge rumor thing, but the rumor was that it was going to be the Metroid Prime trilogy, all as one, but this is just the original game. It is a bit of a budget title, so in Canadian, normally, full price game's $80. This is only $50, so it's a lower price, but it's only the one GameCube game. It's not all three of them. So this is remastered though, right? This is not just a grab and style. Like it doesn't look like a modern AAA game, but I thought it looked great. I was really impressed by the visuals of this thing because the GameCube games generally do look good still, so I don't think they need to do much, so obviously they didn't need to. It doesn't seem like there's any new content here, which I'm fine with as well. But I thought it looked really great, and this is cool that it's finally coming out. And like the Switch now has like a ton of Metroid games, and that's fantastic. It's got Prime. They just added Metroid 2 and Fusion's I guess coming down the road, but Metroid Dread's on there. Prime is coming down the road at some point. We'll talk about that maybe a bit later. But yeah, any thoughts on this? Obviously, you weren't a big GameCube guy, so I'm guessing you haven't played the original Metroid Prime.
I've not played the original. I think the only like dedicated Metroid game I played, maybe a little bit of the second one, like at a friend's house or something like that. And then there was one on it wasn't even the 3DS. It was just like the Nintendo DS. I remember playing that a lot because it had like the DS was weird because it was like they had an online, but it was kind of like over like a LAN network. So like I remember playing like the Versus with a bunch of friends at like a birthday party or something, and just having so much fun with it, and just loving the mechanics of like what Samus was of like turn to the ball or whatever, and having your little mind. So to just see that showcase in here, I thought it was fantastic. Not one that I would get right away, but I don't know if there's a sale or something. I think this is one that I definitely want to check out because it as you mentioned, like it looked awesome in my eyes. I thought it looked like a really good remaster. And yeah, it looked really epic and like a fun little Doom like shooter game. So yeah, I think it looks great.
Yeah, I'm undecided if I'm going to be picking this one up. I think I might have my GameCube disc sitting around somewhere, but I have not ever played the other games in the series. That's where I would be more interested, but I don't think I ever actually complete the game either, so I could see myself picking this one up. This next game I want to bring up just for the joke of it, but we've seen this game before, Master Detective Archives Rain Code. Once again, very, very Japanese game, but I just found it so funny that the hook of this game is that you're like a detective character, and you get some spirit that's attached to you that is essentially like, Navi from Zelda who helps you out and stuff like that. But of course that spirit is just like some hot anime girl with huge boobs. It was just so funny to me. Japanese games are just hilarious. I don't know. It's just such a like even Xenoblade, I forget which one, but it's like, your sword has like a spirit in it. Of course, it's just like a girl that has just huge knockers. It's like, what are you doing in Japan? This is so weird. So anyway, I had to bring that up because that's what my nickname was referencing today, but I thought that was funny. That's coming out June 30th. And we'll keep going on. Nothing you need to add there. They didn't really show much about this, but I guess they were announcing that there is a new Professor Layton game coming out. I didn't catch the subtitle because it was a lot of words, so I didn't have time to write it down before they moved on. But yeah, we didn't see any gameplay, so I don't really know much to say on this, but cool for those fans. You get a new game. Next up, they showed off well, actually, I was a bit confused about this. They showed off what's coming for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe DLC, but normally it's been like, so far they've done, I think, 3 packs, and each pack is, here's 2 Grand Prix, so 8 courses, and that's it. No other new features. But all they showed off today was that there's a new course, which was a surprise, because when they announced this thing, they said it's always going to be, we're going to, add 48 new tracks to the game that are remastered versions of previous games from the series. There's been a little bit of an exception there where they've had a couple maps that were from Tour, and one or two of them hadn't released yet. So technically, its first appearance was in this game. So it's kind of like a new course. And they announced here that like there's a new Yoshi's Island map that is coming to this. It's a brand new course, not a tour course. It's just a new one. So I don't know if they just like changed their mind or something, or if they just messed up with the wording, or if I missed something. But I found that a bit puzzling. And they showed off no other courses, right? They just showed off the one. So you would think they're not just going to release a new map and it's on its own. Like, it's going to be with other courses, but they didn't show off what those courses were, which you would presume would be old maps. So I was very confused by that. But then the thing that got me pretty hyped is, surprisingly, they're throwing a new character in there. They didn't say they were going to do this, but they're bringing Birdo to the game finally. And like, hell yeah, Birdo was in Mario Party Superstars last year, or maybe that was 2 years ago. I can't even remember at this point. But it's like Birdo was just gone for years, and then finally added her Superstars. God, did they add her Strikers? I can't remember. Is Birdo in Strikers as one of the DLC characters? I know they added Diddy Kong.
Remember.
They added the girl from Odyssey. They added Shy Guy. I can't remember if they added Birdo, but anyway, I feel like Birdo's been having a bit of a comeuppance back into the scene. It's like, how is Birdo not in Mario Kart 8? Everyone, even Pink Gold Peach is in Mario Kart, but now finally got Birdo in there. But yeah, what do you think about this Mario Kart display?
I was equally confused by the by like the map announcement, because as soon as Mario Kart started, it's like, all right, we're getting our next Grand Prix here. Shay and I think on a previous side quest I was telling you, we were playing some of the last map packs that came out, and just such a great game. I have so much fun playing that, and the new old maps are so fun to jump into, and it was just. I would say like a little bit sus, where it's just like, the one map that's coming. I was just like, okay, I'm expecting to like get to the next one, and then they just threw us this curveball by being like, oh, you don't see a map? Well, look at Birdo. That's exciting.
Yeah, exactly.
So
You're distracted with Birdo.
It was weird. I'm hoping for like a, I don't know, follow up, maybe not too far away, of like when, like, I guess the next map pack will be releasing, because it is a little bit weird, and I hope they're not just changing their minds and going against their word or anything, because I was promised all these map packs, and they've been great so far, but I want the rest of them.
Yeah, I mean, they've done that marketing. They've hit that marketing so hard of this is how many courses you're getting, that I'm not worried that they're like, oh, instead of 8 courses for this wave, you're getting one map and Birdo. Like, I think they're still doing that. I guess they just weren't ready to show off. It's weird they don't even have like 1 or 2 of the maps, because even in the previous trailers they've done, they don't necessarily show all 8 of the maps. They've sometimes just showed a couple of them, so it was kind of strange. But before the last game of the showcase was Tears of the Kingdom, of course. Is there any other games that I skipped over that you want to bring up before we get into Zelda?
Let me reference my list. I had the Dead Cells DLC, Return to Castlevania.
Yeah,
I just thought the
cool.
crossover looked amazing, and like I mean, that game's so fun. I've never beaten it, but it's one that I just jump in every once in a while. It's just
Nice.
it's great, and I think they showcase like some covers of the original Castlevania songs. I'm not even like a big Castlevania fan. I've seen the Netflix show. I thought it was fantastic, and maybe like a little bit of like the original back in the day, but not like a big nostalgia title for me. But just seeing this aesthetic, I'm like, man, I might have to get this DLC. This looks so sweet. So I wrote that one down, and then the other one was Illusion Island. That's that Disney one. It looks like very like a young kids game or something, but I don't know, just like the
co-op and all that.
Yeah, the 4-player co-op. It looks fun. So maybe, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe Shay and I will pick that up and just be able to go through the levels, because we like multiplayer platformers like that are usually the games that we'll play together. So especially to have a Disney one. She went to Disneyland for the first time of her life last October, so I could definitely see her wanting to get that, because the art style, like the game in general, it doesn't look like anything I haven't played before, just like the Disney aesthetic, but it had enough in there that it looks like it's going to be a fun time. So I think that was the only one that we skipped over.
Yeah, that Illusion Island's coming out July 28th. That's the release date on that one. So there you go. Cool. Let's talk about Tears of the Kingdom. So we already knew this was coming out May 12th, but they confirmed that here. So that's a good sign that it's very likely not getting delayed at this point. With this, they showed off a new trailer with some new gameplay mechanics and all that. They didn't actually have this in the trailer, but they said that, like, I guess, I don't know if it had an eShop page before, but it's up now, or I guess pre-orders are up now is essentially what they did. So with that, it means the price is revealed, and this is what I was alluding to. So this game has been increased by $10 from that usual AAA price, so 89 Canadian dollars now. But like I said, it seems like with the voucher program, if you're using that, it seems like that would essentially, in a way, counteract that additional price increase, because you can pay that whatever it is, $130, and you'll still get your 2 games. So it's kind of weird because you could also use that voucher on a cheaper game like a Metroid Prime, I would imagine. So like that would be a $50 game you could save that amount on. So it's a bit of a foggy area, but I guess just once again, a reinforce, check out those vouchers because you could, in a way, kind of cancel out that additional cost on this game. But yeah, I guess, first of all, just I was expecting one of the developers, the creative guy, to come out. I forget his name, but he's come out every once in a while to talk about Zelda. I was expecting that showcase here. I thought we were going to get him coming out. We'll get a trailer, and then he's going to talk for maybe 5 minutes. So obviously by the time it was like 40 minutes in the direct, I'm like, okay, we're maybe not getting that this time around. But I was really expecting that, and maybe more of an explanation of how the game is going to work, how it's going to build off what Breath of the Wild's world map was, and here's all the different stuff to it to justify why we're sending you back to what seems like the same world with like maybe a couple new zones and of course new features and enemies and all that. But we didn't get that. So I'm still feeling a bit confused as to what exactly this game is and how it is a sequel and what that means here. And I feel like story-wise, I didn't really get any sort of further understanding of what's going on. Now, of course, the Zelda Super Sleuths are going to watch this trailer and pause it on every frame. I'm sure there's a bunch of new stuff there. Mechanics-wise, there's been things I can talk about. But I guess in terms of the overall scope, whether it's the story, whether it's what the game setup is, I'm still feeling a little perplexed on that. So I don't know if this means that we're going to get a Zelda Direct later on that'll explain that stuff. I guess if the game's coming in May, we still got a few months. Like I'm sure another trailer will come out, but I don't know if we're going to get that. I don't know if we're getting another Direct before that, right? So I don't know if we'll get that breakdown from the designer of here's why you need to play Tears of the Kingdom right now. So what were your just overall thoughts of this trailer here?
That's a good point that you brought up there about the Direct. I almost said Direct twice. The Zelda Direct. I guess where like someone comes out to explain all the features because
they've done a lot of those in recent times, right? So it wouldn't be out of the ordinary.
Yeah, because like when I was watching this, I've dabbled briefly in Breath of the Wild. I thought the game was definitely really cool, but watching this trailer, it just seemed like maybe like a 1.5 version of that initial game. And of course, like I said, like I have no attachment to the story or like how that game ended, so maybe that's why I feel this way. But just like they had some new mechanics that I don't remember from the first game. Maybe they were in the first game, and there was a couple of moments when Link was like kind of like more in like a sky area with like kind of platforms there. I thought that looked really cool, but overall it was just it didn't really do too much to move my barometer, and I think that's kind of a miss because I'm someone that like I said, like I haven't played through that first game, but like I'm still susceptible to some great marketing, right? And like to really blow me away and like tell me why, like, no, stop what you're doing. This next Zelda game, this is what your focus needs to be on. And like that, it wasn't even close to that, which is pretty wild to end like the entire direct on it. Because I don't think I'm alone in that regard of just maybe being not blown away by this. It just being somewhere like kind of in the middle. It was cool to see like the title reveal, but out of everything, I feel like this really should have hit hard. And I mean, like Zelda, I'm assuming that was the female voice that was talking in the trailer. Maybe she was saying things that were blowing people away, like if you know the story of Breath of the Wild. But yeah, for me, it really didn't do much like at all. And it's just a title that like, okay, it's not going to be going anywhere once it comes out. Eventually, one day, if I play through Breath of the Wild, I can get on this. But yeah, really not rushing to get this. So and like I didn't really have expectations or like big hopes or anything because like I said, like I'm not itching to get this right at launch. I was never going to, but I don't know. I just think they kind of fell a little flat for like the big ending the direct on.
Yeah, that's too bad. And I'm curious what they're gonna do to try and rectify that. And I don't know, maybe we're outliers. Maybe everyone else was goo-goo. I mean, I'm sure the Zelda fans got enough here to get hyped on it, but for like I'd say I'm a fan of the series, but I'm not. They're not like my favorite games of all time or anything like that. So I need a little bit more to be convinced. I guess, another thing too on the story side of it is originally people were thinking, okay, maybe it seems like Zelda might have a bigger part of this game. Maybe you can play as Zelda. Maybe there's a co-op thing. I'd say at this point, that's like, no way that's happening. Yeah. And they showed off kind of a scene before where Zelda was falling into a pit and Link is like trying to save her and it's unclear if he's able to. We got like a different version of that shot, but that same sort of thing. And, So I guess I don't really. What am I trying to say here? I guess here's my kind of random prediction for this. Where there's a lot of like undead. There's kind of like an undead zombie creature we saw in this, and it seems like there's like a element of resurrection or rising things from the dead. I feel like the name of this. My prediction is I feel like Zelda's gonna die very early on in this thing. She's gonna fall in that hole. Maybe it's unclear if she dies or not. Maybe she just falls in this and you're unclear if she's actually alive or not. But I think maybe she'll die or she'll fake die, and then that she'll be like resurrected as like a demon version. You'll have to like fight against her, and like that will be an antagonist later in the game. I feel like that's kind of something they're going for here. But I don't know if you got this, but it just was a very like subliminal messaging sort of thing. But when this trailer's going on and Zelda's voice is coming in and she's like whatever she's talking about, I was getting flashbacks to like a Star Wars trailer. I can't even point which one in the trilogy, but like Daisy Ridley talking over something that's happening. I was just getting that vibe, like talking about how this world is dire and all this stuff is going wrong. I was getting mad flashbacks, and I think Zelda's British, and I think Daisy Ridley's like Australian, so it's not the exact one-to-one. But I was getting that vibe hardcore. So I don't know. I don't even know which Star Wars trailer. If someone can remind me, go for it, because it's like we would have talked about on the podcast, but it was been years ago at this point that I can't remember. But
that's so
kind of a funny connection I made. So yeah, let's talk about some of this. So yeah, one of my questions here too has been, how are they changing the map? Are they? It seems like it's the same map and maybe some new areas, maybe new Backloggd bases set up that you go to. But it seems like it's unclear for me. There's one shot that seemed like this could have been underground. I don't know if you noticed that too, where there's some Backloggds kind of like doing mining.
Right.
There's some corruption on the ground, and I was like, I don't know if it's just night or if this is like an underground sequence, because obviously that would be a way to add a bunch more terrain, is if you go underground. Even though so far to this point they've really just showed you up in the sky, and that's even what the box art for the game is Link City and like in the clouds and stuff. So unclear about that. And it seems like a couple areas are maybe changed, maybe more corrupted versions of them, but it doesn't seem like that's across the board what's happening. So I am curious about that, because I just feel like, how are you going to capture the magic of Breath of the Wild if 50%, 90%, whatever percentage of the map is just the same as it was before? And maybe you have a couple new mechanics, but I don't know if I'm really going to engage with the game the same way I did that first time, and just the joy of getting lost. So I don't feel like I got my answers there, but seems like there's a bunch of new enemy types. Like we saw some kind of pterodactyl flying monsters. Those look pretty cool. We saw like a dragon on a bridge. So that looked pretty interesting. Seems like there's some new Backloggd types. Seems like there's almost like kind of a war leader type. He was like banging a drum or something. So that seemed pretty fun. We've seen this before, but Link had a kind of mechanical arm. It seems like that's how he's using one of this kind of rewinding sort of powers that he has in this game, but I'm guessing that's also like something to do with corruption. So we'll see what happens with that. Maybe the thing that looked really, really cool to me was, once again, we got a tease about like a flying, like almost like a plane that you're on. It's not like a not like a full plane. It's really just a slab. But we saw that again when we also saw like a car that you're driving around on like terrain with. And it seems like almost like a portable base where you maybe have a chest and you can throw some goods in there and you're just cruising around this world in that thing. And there was a hot air balloon as well. So the addition of like vehicles is something that seems like a really cool addition, and that will make traversing this land that you've already traversed this world, but now you can get across it a bit better. So that seems like a good compromise if a lot of the world is the same. But yeah, gameplay wise, any of those things stand out to you, or anything else I didn't mention that seems particularly interesting to you?
The vehicle is definitely like a surprise for me, because I had never experienced that in any Zelda game other than, I guess, like Wind Waker. You can count the boat, and then what's it called? Spirit Rails or something like that. With
Spirit
the trains.
Tracks.
Spirit Tracks, yeah. So those would. Oh, and then there's one in a boat too, another DS title. Phantom Hourglass, I think that one was.
Yeah, I think that was like a Wind Waker sequel or something, right?
Yeah. So
timeline.
So I guess vehicles aren't too new to it, but just like
good point.
I think something about Breath of the Wild
You've always had horses, but this is a bit different. Yeah.
Oh, you're killing me. Yeah.
Whoa,
so it is like such a grand map, but I just found traversing it to be sometimes bothersome. So if you have like some hot air balloons or some cool vehicles, it just, I don't know, makes it a little bit more interesting. And you brought up a great point that if you are not necessarily backtracking, but trekking through a similar landscape that you had already done on a previous title, it's nice to at least Trek it in style.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited to listen to the the Nintendo podcasts that I check out, Nintendo Shacks or Super Switch Head, stuff like that, to just hear the super fans and like what they dig out of this trailer more, because I feel like I can never be too analytical of these Zelda things. I just kind of see it for what it is, but some other experts see a symbol and then it is a reference to this thing, which means that there's gonna be this feature and all this stuff. And I don't have that Zelda brain to do all that, but curious to see more of this game. I mean, I very likely am picking up this game no matter what. I feel like it's just going to be one of those Game of the Year contenders, so I almost feel compelled to. But I also did love Breath of the Wild. I guess I just want just a solid old school dungeon in this game, and I still don't know if those are in there. I have to assume no if they aren't showing anything like that. But I'm curious what they're going to do in place of that, because there was a ton of those shrines and the divine beasts. So like, what else are they going to do if you don't have those? You got to have something, right? So
Totally.
Curious to see about that stuff. And that was pretty much everything from the Direct. Just a couple games I wanted to pick your mind about. So obviously Metroid Prime 4 was announced in like 2017, and then they said, okay, we're canceling essentially what we have made, and we're remaking this thing from scratch. Since then, we got Metroid Dread. We obviously got this remaster for Prime 1 and bringing back the Game Boy games. But what do you think's going on with Metroid Prime 4? Do you think they're just kind of going to be maybe piecemealing, like we'll release Prime 2, Prime 3 to the eShop, these remasters, kind of just to hold you over until Prime 4, or do you think there's something in danger there?
I could almost see it also as like, since they are doing these remaster titles and just like Metroid Dread and all that stuff, like maybe they're getting feelers out. Like are the Metroid fans really wanting like the next titles? And if they are selling well, it's like, okay, then we're going to continue on it, because the fact that they just scrapped the previous title, like that's a lot of just wasted time and money and all that effort.
Yeah.
So I feel like if they want to do it right, they want to know that people will actually buy it, if like to just make sense for them spending their time and money on it, right? So I don't know if that's like an out of the box theory that doesn't really make sense, but I maybe that is what's going on, because the fact that it's not mentioned here, I don't know. I'm also not reading too much into it because I'm not like the biggest Metroid fan, but hopefully it doesn't mean that it's just dead in the water or anything like that, or if it's, I don't know, the Mario Kart thing giving us a Birdo when we want map pack.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what's taking so long. I mean, if they did restart development in 2017, that's like even 6 years at this point. So who knows? Maybe they're just having a lot of issues with it for whatever reason. Metroid Dread released in 2021. If you're doing this remaster this year, it's like, okay, maybe they're just spacing this stuff out until you're going to get that new title. And I don't know, it could be a hardware thing. Maybe that's the thing in Metroid Prime 4 is so ambitious that they want it to be on the next Nintendo console, which, the Switch is 6 years old at this point. So at some point, they're going to release a different version. I mean, they've had the Switch Lite, and then they had the fucking better looking screen. Why can't I think of the word right now? The LED version. But yeah, they haven't had like an actual stronger version since. So maybe that's part of the reason why Metroid Prime is taking longer than not. But yeah, even like the rumors we got for Metroid Prime was that this trilogy has been done like 2 years ago, and they're essentially just sitting on it, waiting for the right time to release it, which we know Nintendo has done that for many titles in the past. So that makes you wonder, okay, what is the tactic then behind releasing this game right now? Is it because next year they have Prime 4 and they think it's a good spacing for it? Because obviously you don't really want to do it after that title. You want to do it in leading up, get people hyped, and you also don't want people to not buy the remaster because they would be buying the new one, all that stuff. So just some things to think about. We'll keep an eye on that. And then, I think maybe the thing that was a bit surprising for me is pretty much everything I was expecting. I was expecting Xenoblade, Splatoon, Fire Emblem to get their DLC, the new Mario Kart stuff, expecting to see the next wave of that. Hoping for the Switch Online stuff, wasn't necessarily expecting it, but I was very happy to see some of that there. Expected Tears of the Kingdom, expected Advance Wars. A lot of that stuff was we saw it coming. Some of these other weirder new titles, didn't see them coming. But for me, I was thinking, okay, the Mario movie's coming out in April. I feel like they want something Mario on the system new that people can check out. Now, if Odyssey 2 or whatever that next big 3D Mario game isn't ready, then obviously you're not going to rush that out. That's not really a Nintendo thing to do. But I thought you want something to release. And I feel like now would have been the prime time to do it because that movie's coming out soon. You want to have some marketing for it. So at this point, I kind of just feel like they don't have anything ready. And so obviously there was like, okay, new Mario games that you can play through the Switch online, and they have Mario Kart DLC. But I thought like even like a 2D Mario, like they had Mario Rabbids last year, but like some spin-off, like just any new Mario title to come out. So I guess that was maybe the one surprising thing not to see here for me, was something. But any thoughts on Mario or any other series or games that you were expecting to see that we didn't get here?
I not really. I think the Mario poll that you just mentioned, that's a great shout out because that would make a lot of sense just for promoting the movie, like again, just getting sales for Nintendo. Because if I'm assuming everybody and their grandma is going to be going to see the Super Mario movie, so then afterwards, if you have a new Mario title out like around that time, like it helps so much with sales, and again, just getting the attention on Nintendo and Mario. So it's probably one of those situations where they're probably kicking themselves. It's like, why did we not have something ready? But at the end of the day, it's better to hold off as opposed to rushing it. You know, you don't want to put out something half-assed or anything. And then in terms of what I was expecting, it was pretty much just, I guess, a hope to get that Pikmin gameplay, which I did right off the hop. So like I said, that was just such a great way to start the showcase. And then I guess the other one would have been like an actual, like the next pack for Mario Kart. So that was a little bit disappointing what we got there. And I don't know. I guess in hindsight, it is kind of weird that we didn't get like just a mention or like a comment on what's going on with Metroid. They just left it in the dark. So hopefully, I mean, as we just talked about, hopefully it's not anything too negative.
Yeah. A couple more, actually, just thoughts on Mario. Now that I was thinking about that a bit more. One thing that was a bit weird was, I guess it was 2 years ago now, when they released the Mario 3D All-Stars collection, I think is what that thing was called, that had Mario 64, Mario Sunshine, and Mario Galaxy. And weirdly, they only had that as a limited time purchase. Now, obviously, there's probably still physical copies, swinging around there, maybe even at GameStop, I don't know. But you can't buy it on the eShop anymore, which, like that could have been a good thing. It's like, okay, we're just re-releasing that. You can purchase that now again until the Mario, or maybe until the movie is like out of theaters, essentially, like for another few months. But then there's also a weird element to that where now Super Mario 64 is available through Switch Online. So it feels a bit weird to be charging people to pay for that, even if it comes with 2 other games, when you have access to that through the online feature. So I don't know if that's something that would dissuade them, but I just don't think they ever planned on releasing that thing ever again. Like they just wanted it to be a limited time thing. But then the weird thing with that combo was that it was missing one game. It was missing Mario Galaxy 2. So I felt like that would have been an easy one. You got the emulation set up for Wii games, because obviously you released Galaxy on the Switch with very little changes at all. I feel like they could have done that. And whatever, they could charge $80 for it. They probably would, or $60 at least, maybe in the kind of Metroid kind of price range. But like that would have been another easy one to put out there too. Finish that collection, get it all on the Switch. Good timing with the Mario movie. So once again, something like that, I think for a Galaxy 2, I think you actually could get away with not really having a marketing cycle for it, right? Just release it a week or two, or even on the same day as the Mario movie. And that's totally fine. Obviously, if it's a new title, you want to have a few months ramping up to get the marketing out there. So who knows? Maybe that is still coming, since we have, I guess, it's early February still. So February, March, April. Yeah, we have a little bit of time for them to do something like that. So we'll keep an eye on that, because I feel like they want something hot on the eShop that's at the top of the page there. So that people watch the movie, they're hyped, they go to the eShop, and the first thing they see is Galaxy 2 or whatever the equivalent is. So keep an eye on that. But Kirkland, this is a lot of fun, talking all about some Nintendo today. The Nintendo Direct boys over here. And yeah, we both had a lot of stuff that we could get pretty hyped on. And it's crazy. A bunch of stuff you can just immediately go check out right now. So I'm sure next week's Sidequest, I'll be talking about some of this stuff with me and Travis over there. So wait, you got some final thoughts there?
I feel like that's such a... Like I give Nintendo shit just for the crazy ideas and just taking a game off the eShop for no reason. I just think that's so bonkers. But I must give them credit. Like when they have these directs, so many times it's just like, and it's available now or later today, or we have demos available. Demos were just something that I feel like were gone for a little while, and they just came back. And I feel like
They're
lot of
killing
things
it on
the
demo
eShop.
front. I'll give them credit for that.
It's awesome, because then you allow people to get a taste of their game. So
And 90% of them have the progress carry over to the main game if you pick it up as well. So that's just amazing. We didn't have that for demos back in the day either. So.
Yeah, exactly. You'd have to backtrack, and I guess you're learning from your mistakes there. But
yeah,
and then like also with the voucher thing, like there is a lot of things that I can definitely tip my hat to Nintendo for, because it's definitely great ideas. But still, there's some things that they have me scratch my head on. But for the most part, it was nice to have mostly positive direct today.
All right, yeah, good stuff. Next week, me and Travis will be side questing it up. We'll be talking about Midnight Suns, Wolverine, and some other hot news stuff that comes up. But thank you, everyone, so much for listening. Let us know what you were most hyped about from this event, whether that's in our Discord, whether it's in the YouTube comments, whatever you want to do. And yeah, we'll be back in just a few short days for some more gaming content. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.